The Capitals are coming off two big wins. Can they keep it going? It'll get put to the test as the road gets that much more difficult as the team heads out west.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how this Capitals team is rolling. Can they keep it going? And what is in their secret sauce and what is behind their success? A bit of a hint, it's not the veterans on the team. We'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about how the special teams for the Capitals has come up clutch in the last couple games. And then we'll talk about how Charlie Lindgren is playing huge. And ultimately, as Capitals fans, we're happy that they did not trade Lindgren. But just to get it going here, wow, what a huge win for the Capitals as they down the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, listen, I know that they are not one of the better teams in the NHL this season. They do have one of the biggest players on the team, though, in Connor Bedard, and you saw his fancy stick work on display out on the ice, but this team seems to be rolling and engaged and just at the right time. And it's interesting as we, are getting away from the trade deadline. There was the perception being that the Capitals didn't do a whole lot, that they were giving up, that this is the season. They're waving the white flag. It's all done here. And I think more than anything that the Capitals did not get the return that they were hoping for some of the players that names were being floated out there. So Brian McClellan kind of put his finger out and said, no, I think this Capitals team can still compete. And that's why he ultimately kept a lot of the big names here, because I think the Capitals are, getting hot just at the right time. And it's not necessarily the veterans that have been on this team for the longest time. You take a look at Sgarbossa, you take a look at Protas, you take a look at LaPierre, that this team is a lot different than it was to start this season. And I think, a lot of people, myself included, kind of, saw the script for the season play out just the way everyone thought it would. But that was with the old team. But what did we see? We saw some big pieces move out this year. You saw Backstrom, you saw Mantham and Kuznetsov. They're no longer Capitals, and that ushered in a bit of a youth infusion. So you can go ahead and take that script that you had written up for this team and throw it in the recycle bin, because it does appear that things have changed. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I know the Capitals are coming off two big wins over the Penguins and over the Blackhawks, not two of the better teams in the NHL, but they will be put to the test this week as they are playing some really, really good teams. But let's talk first here about the game against the Blackhawks. The Caps are still in it, at least for now. Get back to me after the West Coast trip, because the Jets and Oilers will not be easy, and they cannot sleep on the Kraken either. So you take a look at the Jets. This year's Jets team is really good, and it's going to be a test right away to start the week to see if this team is worth its salt. If they actually are as good as I think they are, as a lot of Capitals fans, or did the Capitals just get lucky against two really poor NHL teams? I'm really hoping that they are improving, not just the fact that they were playing two poor teams. But for now, the Capitals are rolling, picking up two huge points in their win over the Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. One of the things I'm going to say for sure is that Connor Bedard is all of that and then some. There were oohs and there were ahs from Capitals fans with his fancy stick work. He is quite the hockey player, but I don't think I'm saying anything that you don't already know, but very impressive. But talking about the Capitals coming off that win against the Blackhawks, this comes off a huge win over the Pens on Thursday. 2 statement wins, a team binding together, a team playing a 60-minute game. This is what we've been waiting for the entire season, and we're seeing it on display out on the ice. Like I said, now the Pens and the Blackhawks aren't exactly 2 of the best teams in the NHL, but it's a crucial 4 points in 2 games that the Capitals so desperately needed. So I'm going to take it, stockpile those wins, pick up the wins on the games that you must win, and really hope that you can win the games that you really aren't supposed to win. That, I think, is key. And like I talked about, the Capitals finally doing something that we've said they've needed to do all season, play a complete game. I would say that the last 2 games in particular, the Capitals played a complete game. Talking about players, young players that are rising up and making a name for themselves, Hendrix LaPierre continues to impress. His goal against Peter Mrazek was the 5th goal and 7 points in 6 games since being called up from Hershey. And, you know, I don't think that there's any chance of him getting sent down to Hershey. And I say that, and I would have said that even if Kuznetsov was still on the team or Mantha. I still think that he has played so well this season, a totally changed player, that I think he has solidified his place on this team. And for me, I'm all about it. Ovechkin had struggled to find chemistry earlier in the year with other centers he has played with, you know, Kuznetsov, Strome, and Dowd briefly there. For years, he had Backstrom, and it was a hand-in-glove situation. They both complemented each other so well. But now let's take a look at LaPierre. It does appear that there is chemistry finally with one of his centers, but in a small sample size, appears that LaPierre and Ovi have struck a chord. And you take a look at Ovi as well, has points in 5 straight games in 15 of the last 17. So just rolling, the Capitals rolling. And like I say, I stand behind my statement. As Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. But LaPierre, he had his thoughts as well. He says, we have a really good mix right now of veteran players and young guys. The young guys try to push the older guys, and the older guys, they've been there. They want to push us too to be really good. It's fun, and everyone's contributing. And there's no one happier on the ice or sitting on the bench than Alex Ovechkin. He was so happy when his fellow countryman, Ivan Miroshnichenko, scored his goal. He's always so happy when he sees Hendrix LaPierre score his goals. So I think that he's almost like a father, a proud father sitting out there. And, you know, the young kids are finally turning into men and becoming legitimate NHL players, not futures, not prospects, but they're coming of age. Talking about players making the most of their opportunities, Michael Sgarbossa, who was called up after Kuzi went into the NHL's player assistance program, has done nothing but be a solid contributor, scoring a highlight reel backhand goal. And it was quite stunning. If you didn't see it, it was, you know, he was in tight and he had to do that backhand goal. He credited Kenny McCudden, the skills coach, for, you know, putting him through drills to do that. But, you know, he's eating a bit of humble pie there. It was an impressive goal, make no mistake about it. And it was uptight. And what is behind the Capitals' success? What is their secret sauce? Is that they're finally listening to Spencer Carberry talking about crash the net, hit him with a bunch of shots and crash the net, hoping that there's a rebound so you can get a second and third opportunity and good things will happen. Well, what do you know? Good things have happened for the Capitals. Talking about other players, you know, I've talked about Sonny Milano. We need to see more from him when he came back from his injury. We have seen that. Sonny Milano got on the board for the 5th straight game. Sonny Milano getting hot at just the right time, and also a young player on this team that is making the most of his opportunity. Also got a new contract. His Alexei Protas had 2 assists for his 6th multi-point game of the season, tied for the most on the team with John Carlson. So that contract was a bit ago, but I think that it's, you know, you're seeing it on the ice. It was definitely worth it, as Alexei Protas figures to be a solid piece this year. and in years to come. Talking about your future captain, Tom Wilson led the team with 4 shots on goal and just really stepping up and, doing what he does best, scoring goals, being a leader, a physical presence. I guess, if there's one thing I would change about his game is too much time in the penalty box, but I think that that's all part of what Tom Wilson is. He leads with a physicality, and subsequently sometimes you will be penalized for that. John Carlson, we know about John Carlson, was huge, picked up 2 assists in the win, and now has points in 6 of the last 7 and 7 of the last 9 overall. So this team, like Hendrix LaPierre, that's sprinkled with youth, it's sprinkled with veterans, is really killing it, and they're doing it at just the right time. The Capitals are not out of it yet. And there's a very real chance if they can continue with sustained pressure and playing a 60-minute game, crashing the net, hoping for that second or third opportunity. If it doesn't score pay dirt, good things will happen. Just keep following the script that Spencer Carberry has laid out. All right, so coming up here after the break, one of the other huge things for the Capitals is that the specials team for this group is firing on all cylinders. I'll talk about it coming up. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and one of the things that's frustrating for me is that when my favorite sports team's playing, say I didn't get tickets to the last minute, or my favorite band is playing, and I can't find tickets, I'm frustrated. You can avoid the frustration with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this team is firing on all cylinders, just like a car that got a tune-up. There's no misfires. They got the new plugs in there. The wires are all lined up, and it is running like a well-oiled machine. And what is behind it? What was some of the weaknesses of this team earlier in the season was the special teams, but that seems to have been fixed. It seems to have been rectified, and it seems like the Capitals are playing really, really well. The special teams continue to keep rolling. The Caps PK was a perfect 4 for 4. The power play is firing on all cylinders as Strome fed Tom Wilson an expert pass, and Wilson drove it home from the bumper position for the 15th of the season. So that is part of the Capitals' keys for success is the special teams for the Capitals, the PK, the PP. It's all working together just the way that it should have been for the entire season. And, one of the things that you could avoid overtaxing the PK is if you didn't spend so much time in the penalty box. That is something that the Capitals will need to address if they want to have success going forward. Strome also had 4 assists in his last 2 games in points in 4 straight and 8 of the last 9. So talking about the power play being huge there, that was a sweet feed from Dylan Strome to Tom Wilson and drove it from the bumper position, knocked it in for his 15th. That is what you want to see from Tom Wilson. And Dylan Strome, of course, has just been the maestro out there at the center position, just doing some really great hockey, whether it is on the power play or just in regular game time activity, that Dylan Strome is engaged in is a huge piece of the Capitals' success this season. Again, the Blackhawks, it had to be a bit bittersweet playing against him. That was the team that did not give him a qualifying offer. He came to this team and has done nothing but kill it. The power play killing it as well. The Caps power play now has goals in 7 straight games with 10 total in that stretch and has made good in 10 of the last 11 games overall. That was something that the Capitals struggled with earlier in the season. Now, again, it seems like it is firing on all cylinders. And as Capitals fans, you should be very encouraged. Statement wins and consistency. And, the thing of it is, I've talked about this team. It is a bit of a roller coaster. And I don't want to be all the way up on top here with my arms in the air, seeing the big dive off the cliff ahead with the West Coast trip. I want to be positive. I want to think that it is sustainable. But for me, seeing is believing. And the big test coming up next to see if the special teams is dialed in, to see if this team is firing on all cylinders, if they can ultimately play a full 60-minute game, will start in the next game against the Jets. They are really good this year. They're having a hard time getting people to show up at their arena, but they are a really good hockey team. And I love it. I would have it no other way. Oftentimes people say, well, they got an easy schedule coming up. And I say, I hate that. You take a look at the Penguins, you take a look at the Blackhawks. Those were both games that they should have won. I like when they reach for something and grab it. Taking down the Bruins, say they could take down the Canucks, say they can take down the Jets. That will change everything about the Capital season. Because you take a look at the standings, they're not out of it. Like Brian McClellan said, he was a little bit worried if he should have done more, but then he was looking at it. He goes, all that's going to, needs to happen is for a couple of the teams in front of the Capitals for them to falter, and the Capitals can swoop right in and keep doing what they're doing best. And they're doing that with the youth. They're doing that with the PK killing it. They're doing it with the PP killing it. Things are humming along so well for the Capitals. That is what we need to see from this team going forward. But a lot of positivity to take away from that game. Again, the youth, I can't get past that. That it's something that has been spoke of for years. This team needs to get younger. It needs to get faster. And some people said, well, they don't have these guys on the team because they got their opportunity and blew it. Not this season. Connor McMichael, Hendrix LaPierre, Beck Malenstein, Alexi Protas, all knocking it out of the park. Seeing is believing, and I believe in the youth of this team. All right, so coming up here after the break, another huge piece on this team that was potentially going to be on the move, but the Capitals held on to him, at least for now. Chucky Sideburns, Charlie Lindgren, the man himself. I'll talk about him coming up. Goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, that's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the other key pieces of this team is Charlie Lindgren, one of the players that was potentially going to be on the move is here. Ultimately, I think that, there were offers, and I think that, you take a look at what Brian McClellan did. I think he wanted to hold on to him until he got the return that he was looking for. And one of the things that I know is that it was a weak draft market out there. You couldn't offer up draft picks and get to the huge return that you had gotten in previous seasons. Think about what the Capitals did last season at the trade deadline, that it wasn't that way this season. So the Capitals, I think, will hold on to Charlie Lindgren until the summer or around the draft when they can maximize their return. There are quite a few teams out there that would have got a lot better with Charlie Lindgren if he signed a contract with them. You take a look at the Devils, who got a new goalie. Will that be enough to push them over the top? And you also look at some other teams around the league as well that have shaky net minding. You've seen glimpses of that with Edmonton. You've seen glimpses of that with the Hurricanes this year. Some of those teams have addressed that, but I think that, Charlie Lindgren is here for now. He's here until the end of the season, but ultimately I think that at the end of the year, the Capitals will get a good return for him because he has another year left. It's on a bargain basement deal. But let's concentrate on the here and the now. And right now, Charlie Lindgren is lights out for the Capitals and stepping up and being clutch when the Capitals need him the most. Charlie Lindgren continues to impress by playing elite level goaltending by dominating in his 5th straight start. You are not seeing any faltering. You are not seeing any weakness in his game. He is totally dialed in. Some of the saves tested Charlie's goaltending prowess by making some top shelf saves against Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, it was reminiscent of old Braden Holtby, vintage Braden Holtby out there. He was just playing in top form. Spencer Carberry on Lindgren, he stepped up big time. There was a stretch where we kind of came back down to normal goaltending because he was so stellar early in the year, and now he's right back in that stellar form right when the Capitals need him the most. He went 6 consecutive periods without giving up a goal. Lights out. We could not have asked for anything more from Charlie Lindgren. Lindgren saved 29 of 30. The Caps had thought of trading Charlie Lindgren, but in hindsight, it appears that Brian McClellan and the Caps made the right decision as the Capitals team continues to defy odds and make a late season push. Can they keep pushing? If they can do it, they'll do it on the back of a guy like Charlie Lindgren. In order to do that, you need elite level goaltending, and they have that in Charlie Lindgren. You take a look at Darcy Kemper. He may get called upon. You take a look at the Stanley Cup run. They needed Holtby. They needed Grubauer to get it done. So they will need a good one and number 2. And I think the Capitals have that in Charlie Lindgren and Darcy Kemper, as crazy as that sounds. Charlie Lindgren was kind of the outsider, a guy that not a lot of people around the league knew before he came here, has risen up to the top in the ranks and is now numero uno for the Capitals. Now is the time for Charlie after the season ends, appears to be up in the air. What happens at the end of the season? We don't know. It's going to be up in the air. Again, like I talked about, he could get traded. We don't know. But all I know right now is the Capitals' great play is being backstopped by an elite level netminder in Charlie Lindgren. And that's great news for the Capitals, as they at least have one netminder that's up to the challenge. Again, to reference the New Jersey Devils, they're kind of on the outside looking in. And why? They have elite goal scoring there, but they don't have great goaltending. The Capitals are lucky on a lot of different accounts that they have two really great options in net. And now their offense is humming along and the defense is dialed in. It's getting to be really interesting. And it's interesting for me, the teams that really swung for the fences. I'm talking about the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm talking about, some of the other teams out there that went all in. The Hurricanes made some big acquisitions as well, amongst other ones. Will that pay dividends for them? Or will a sleeper like the Capitals, an underdog, sneak in and impress? That would be a really great story, wouldn't it? That, you take a look at how crazy the Vegas Golden Knights are playing right now. What if they don't achieve their objective? When you go all in, as much as the Golden Knights went all in, you don't expect anything less than a Stanley Cup. Now, they are poised to do really, really great things, but kind of funny to a certain extent if they fall on their face in the playoffs, being that they pushed all their chips in. And one of the things I know is that they moved around draft picks and stuff, that the Golden Knights must not have too many draft picks left because they pushed everything in. Everything must go. They sold this and that to get the team that they want. And, if you take a look at the Golden Knights sketched out on paper, they're huge. Goaltending. Is the goaltending on the Golden Knights going to be enough? Is the goaltending on the Hurricanes going to be enough? The one thing I know for sure is the Capitals are in a really, really great position with Charlie Lindgren between the pipes. And say something crazy happens. Say, Charlie gets injured, or say Darcy Kemper gets injured. it's not just them. The pipeline is full. The cupboard is stocked in net minding for the Capitals in years to come. Clay Stevenson, the number one netminder in all of the American Hockey League, is in the Capitals organization. He could step in flawlessly. You take a look at Hunter Shepard, another guy, could step in flawlessly. The Capitals are in a really great position. As Capitals fans, you should be pumped. You should be excited for what this means because, again, we're not one of the teams that is struggling in net. We would be really good, but we don't have a good netminder. The Capitals have that. Let's hope that they can keep, harnessing what they've learned in these last couple games, and put this lightning back in the bottle and let it out in the next game and see if this team can keep rolling. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel. Find a Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Listen, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.